Welcome back, history buffs. Grab a seat because today we're stepping right into the classroom for an archaeological masterclass. We're going to be looking closely at ancient artifacts to completely shatter the old assumption that hunter-gatherer societies were somehow, primitive. Get ready because we're unpacking an incredible society that literally defies all our standard historical models.
Just think about this for a second. What if a society thrived for 10,000 years without traditional farming? Right? We're so used to this idea that agriculture is the absolute non-negotiable requirement for any advanced civilization. But what if it isn't? In today's Explainer, we're acting as archaeologists to dig into the Jomon period, the deep roots of modern Japan. We're going to analyze how their social structure and everyday artifacts reveal a mind-blowingly adaptable society. These weren't just wandering nomads, they built a highly complex world that lasted for 10 millennia.
All right, here's our syllabus for today's class. 1. Surviving extreme climate shifts. 2. Prehistoric food and technology. 3. Engineering the Jomon village. 4. Spirituality and burial rituals. 5. The vast social network. And finally, 6. Redefining human civilization. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Surviving extreme climate shifts. Adapting to a changing Earth. Imagine trying to survive this kind of environmental whiplash. Roughly 11,000 years ago, we see a rapid sea level drop. Then, fast forward to about 8,000 years ago, there's dramatic global warming and massive sea level rise. And right in the middle of all that, the 8.2K event triggers a sudden brutal cooling phase. I mean, for most ancient societies, that level of climate chaos spells complete collapse. Poof, gone. But the Jomon? They achieved this incredible state of hyper-adaptability. They survived and thrived, even as the Earth was practically shifting right beneath their feet. Section 2. Prehistoric food and technology. The science of survival. So, surviving those wild climate shifts required some serious innovation. And this is where we get to play prehistoric CSI. As archaeologists, we don't just look at pretty intact pots. We analyze the microscopic evidence left behind. Carbon and nitrogen isotope data from burnt pottery actually divides the Jomon into distinct groups. You got one group heavily utilizing marine life, like salmon, and another focusing deeply on starchy plants and nuts. They weren't just desperately eating whatever they tripped over in the woods. They were maximizing the diverse bounties of both the ocean and the mountains in a highly systematic, organized way. And this brilliantly illustrates their technological genius. A lot of the local nuts the Jomon foraged, highly toxic, like deadly if eaten raw. But instead of just avoiding them, they developed akunuki. By foraging specific plants to create alkaline ash, they boiled these nuts in this complex chemical leaching process that completely neutralized the poison. Think about that. They literally engineered a way to turn a deadly, naturally occurring toxin into a stable, calorie-dense staple food. It's pure prehistoric chemistry at work. Section 3. Engineering the Jomon village. Building to last. Okay, so once you have a scientifically managed food supply like that, you don't need to wander around anymore. The archaeological record here completely shatters that old temporary campsite stereotype. We are talking massive pit dwellings, incredibly deep storage pits designed to hold all those processed nuts, and highly engineered hunting infrastructure, like pitfall traps lined with inverted spikes. Yeah, definitely not a place you'd want to accidentally go for an evening stroll. This is civil engineering on a massive scale. They were meticulously planning out real, heavy-duty infrastructure. But the ultimate proof of their permanence, that lies in their stone fireplaces. Built with heavy river stones, these hearths were engineered to survive brutal winters and served as the absolute center of family life. The artifacts showed these weren't just used for a single season either. They were built tough. They were designed to be used continuously across multiple generations. The Jomon weren't pitching temporary tents, guys. They were building permanent hometowns meant to last. Section 4. Spirituality and burial rituals. Beyond survival. Having established these permanent, thriving villages, the Jomon had the stability to look way beyond mere survival. And as any archaeologist will tell you, finding out how people treat their dead tells you everything about their worldview and spiritual life. The Jomon practiced something profoundly intimate, known as the graveyard home. When a house's life cycle ended, they didn't just abandon it and move on. They repurposed that exact same physical space into a permanent burial ground. The living and the dead occupied the very same footprint. It reveals this deeply rooted, constant spiritual connection to their homes and to their ancestors. We also find these mysterious, perfectly intact clay pots buried upright in the earth outdoors. And make no mistake, this was absolutely not mere waste disposal.
These upright pots were intentionally placed as part of sophisticated regional rituals, often serving as careful, tender burials for infants. It shows us a society that processed grief and spirituality through highly complex, structured rituals. There is a profound emotional depth here. And that reverence extended deeply into their high art, too. As we excavate these sites, we find premium pottery coated in stunning red and black lacquer, meticulously decorated with human faces. These intricate creations went way, way beyond everyday cooking pots. They represent high-level, sacred art specifically crafted for divine ceremonies and prayers. It's like a breathtaking window straight into the complex spiritual mind of the Jomo people.
Section 5. The vast social network. Trade across the archipelago. Now, you might be thinking, these permanent spiritual villages were just isolated pockets of people, completely cut off from each other. Not at all. If we look at the data from Western Japan, we see diverse social structures coexisting at the exact same time. Over in central Kyushu, we find incredibly high population density with massive clustered villages. But right over on the Genkai seacoast, society was dispersed, fluid, and mobile. They didn't force a one-size-fits-all model from some central authority. They adapted their society perfectly to fit their local environments.
But despite those local differences, they were deeply connected. Get this, archaeologists have discovered sparkling, beautifully polished green jadeite, crafted way up in Hokkaido, buried deep in the distant Tohoku region. Just think about the sheer logistics of that for a second. We're talking about transporting goods over massive distances, across rugged, mountainous terrain and open water, entirely without horses or paved roads. This long-distance movement of precious greenstones is the ultimate proof of an active, vast, and functioning trade network spanning the entire Japanese archipelago.
Section 6. Redefining Human Civilization, the Jomon Legacy.
So, it's time to take all this archaeological data and compare it against the historical models we grew up with in the West. Think about ancient Egypt, Greece, Gaul, or Rome. Those civilizations relied heavily on agriculture to rapidly expand, to exert dominion over nature, and to build centralized, often violent state powers. The Jomon, they took a completely different path. They did not seek violent hegemony or territorial conquest. Instead, they relied on immense resourcefulness, incredibly strong community bonds, and a sustainable harmony with their environment that successfully lasted for an astonishing 10,000 years.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's class. If a society can achieve 10,000 years of sustainable complexity, with advanced food processing, permanent engineering, deep spiritual art, and vast trade networks, all without agriculture or empires, what truly defines a civilization? It completely changes how we look at human history, doesn't it? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the past, and I'll see you next time.